please, no touching of any of the rocks, walls, or formations in our cave. We have natural oils on our hands that'll come onto those rocks, essentially killing them, causing them to stop growing and turning them ugly forever. So we're going to keep our cave very beautiful for generations to come. So as long as you keep your hands to yourselves on this tour, you can take as many photos as you like and ask as many questions as you please. Other than that, like I said, no running, jumping, or playing. It's a concrete floor down there with some gravel, so if you fall, it's going to be a bad time. It's not very comfortable. And let's see, what else we got? No, try to keep the chatter down to a minimum whenever I'm talking in the cave, especially it can be very echoey and reverbery, so I want to make sure everyone can be able to hear me and see what I have to say today and point out, so we'll be in good shape. I feel like I'm missing one. That's it. All right. As we go throughout the tour, like I said, just stay close to me, within around 15 feet. I know where all the good stuff is, all the great formations, all the neat formations. I also know where the dangerous spots are, like low-hanging ceilings and muddy puddles. Have y'all folks checked in?
Yeah.
Okay, you're all set. All right. Let her run to the restroom real quick. Does anyone have any questions before we get started?
No.
Okay.
We got a minute, I'll ask you, how did y'all come to identify it?
I'll tell you a little bit about that. So the property up here actually used to be a bit of a goat farm. So back in the day, they found this sinkhole right over here, and you're more than welcome to check this out after the tour. But we're going to be taking stairs down and around that sinkhole. It's about an 80-foot sinkhole, goes all the way to the bottom, and that's where the cave actually starts. So it was this the discovery of the sinkhole that led us to the cave. There are bats in the cave. We have what are called tricolor bats. If you've been to some other caves in Texas, you might recognize them. They look like little brown furry chicken nuggets that are hanging on the wall. So I've seen, no, I wouldn't recommend it. There's not much food on them. I've seen two today. Generally, we only see about one a day. So it's pretty cool. We'll get to see, I think, two, unless they've flown around. And they'll be pretty close, so you should be able to get some good photos of them as well. All right. If anyone's not ready, can get guided back down or caught up with us with another tour guide who will take them down. So if anyone's not ready, we can go ahead and get started. Y'all can follow me right this way.
There we go. Let's go down in the cave. Into the cave we go. Ooh. Now we have to walk down an 8-story.
Look, there's a bird. If you want to go back up the stairs and get a closer view, you're more than welcome to do that right there. So these are our tricolor bats. Like I said, they just hang out down here during the day, and they go back up towards the surface at night to feed on any mosquitoes or any other insects in the trees. We'll see another one, but make sure you point that out to anyone else coming down the stairs.
All right. Joel, there's a bat right here on the wall that he's talking about.
If you'd like to take a picture of the bat, you can do so. Just make sure you have your flash off.
Flash off, Ethan.
Small bats.
The Mexican tree-tails or the...
We don't have them anymore. I just kind of sealed things off.
All right, can everyone hear me? Yeah. All right, if you can't see me, keep coming around that corner there. Like I said, be mindful of your neighbor. Make sure everyone can see and hear me here.
Cleaner mouse.
So yeah, the bat is right up there. We'll see another one as we go down the stairs. So I'll tell you a little bit more about those later. But the stairs y'all are standing in right now were built in 1938. Now that's when the cave first started getting that's when the workers first started trying to open up the cave towards the public, 1938. So they knew that the cave existed down there, and they were just trying to make it accessible towards the public. So they dug and they dug and they dug with all their pickaxes and shovels to create this tunnel that we're in right now. They got to this rock layer right behind me here, and they actually couldn't get past this. So what they ended up doing was blasting it all out with dynamite. So all these little holes that you see as we go down the stairs are actually where they would drill in the dynamite, blast out the rock. It was much easier for them to carry those rocks out of there than it would be to keep trying to break it. Now, I've seen all sorts of critters in these holes before. I've seen bats, frogs, and even centipedes in here, so don't be poking your fingers in the holes. We don't want to keep our hands to ourselves again. But you're more than welcome to hang on to the handrail as we go throughout the tour. I encourage that you do so if you feel like you're going to need it. Sometimes on the stairs there can be some water on them, so just keep an eye out for that. Make sure you watch your step and watch your head as we go down the sinkhole here.
Alright, let's go. It's probably going to be a part 2 video on this.
You gotta stay with me, okay?
Here we go.
When do you think they installed that?
Look, there's a sinkhole.
They got our Costco lights.
There's a sinkhole there. Like I was saying, there's going to be a part 2 to this video. Oh, and the temperature just dropped.
We should have built a house in our
Okay, let's look.
Maybe we'll have to come back up and then.
It's getting cold.
I guess that's the sinkhole.
There's a sinkhole up there.
As soon as you make this. Jason, you can live here, dude.
Still looking right here.
Yeah.
It got pretty cold. Like, the temperature dropped right up there.
Sounds like you need some dynamite.
We're in the cave with no name in San Antonio.
That'll work.
Alright folks, so if you can't see me, hopefully you can hear me. Can everyone hear me? Yeah! Alright, that's what I like to hear. Y'all keep coming down those stairs here. And as you come down the stairs, if you look up towards the interior, you can see the original sinkhole entrance. So this sinkhole was originally discovered, like I said, by a group of farmers and ranchers who were working up top on the property at the time. They had an old goat farm up there. Now, there was a big boulder sitting on top of this hole right here, and there was a bunch of steam coming out around that boulder. So that's kind of what drew their attention to this hole here. They rolled away that boulder and they found this massive sinkhole. Now, the reason the steam was coming out of the ground right here is because the cave is 66 degrees all year round with 100% humidity all year round as well. So on a really cold winter day up top on the surface, kind of creates this column of steam that shoots out of the ground. The boulder that was sitting on top, we believe, was placed there by any Native Americans that knew about this hole. They just didn't want any of their men, women, children, or animals to fall in. So they were smart enough to cover that hole up, but those ranchers were so curious that they rolled that boulder away, found this sinkhole, and of course, a few days later, one of their goats on the property did fall through the hole. So the first people that actually come into this hole came to get their poor pet goat. They descended down using a really long systems of ropes and ladders tied together. They got to this point, about where I am, that's where the goat landed. They scooped up their pet goat and they got all the way back out. What was that?
Good question.
But whenever the ranchers were down here, they did see this room right behind me here, and they decided that that looked like a pretty sweet spot to hide out from the law during Prohibition, making whiskey and moonshine down here back when it was illegal to do so. So that's exactly what they did down here all throughout Prohibition. We like to call this room the whiskey room. Unfortunately for you adults, we do not give out any free samples. As we go throughout the tour though, you might get a drop of water on your head or the back of your neck. It can be pretty cold. The water is 66 degrees, very cold. It might shock you a little bit, but don't worry about it. We like to say those are called cave kisses. We say there's 7 years of good luck if you get one. So 7 additional years for everyone you get after that as well. So you can try to calculate and count up how many drops you get and see how lucky you'll be for the rest of your life.
Keep going.
That sounds like science to me, so that's pretty great.
Nothing.
Did he win the Super
You was me.
We're not gonna say.
Like a lot.
Situation?
We get all this.
might be over 4 bills, and I play once a week.
Big. I think theirs is slightly better. We'll see another bed at the bottom.
See that trying to remind us,
So, reds are supposed to be mineral lights, just prevent lights from knocking into the rocks. From damaging lights. Looks like we need to go.
If you can't hear it, I think there's water down there because I can hear it.
Y'all keep coming down the stairs. Let's squeeze everyone down into this room as much as we can. Got a big group today, so just get to know your neighbor a little bit. We're all going to be together in a big dark cave in the ground for about an hour. Perfect time to get to know one another. But yeah, those ranchers, whenever they came down here, they set up shop right back there. In order to make their whiskey during Prohibition, they needed a wood-burning stove, so you can actually see a lot of smoke would fill this room, eventually turning the ceiling black with soot, damaging it. Also damaging the walls as well. Now I will point out that this is smoke damage that you see on the walls, but this is also what the cave will start to look like after many years of excessive touching as well. You can see it really discolors, smooths out, and loses a lot of its detail. So that's just a good example of why we keep our hands to ourselves in this cave. But the ranchers, of course, they didn't know any of that back in the day, so they were probably getting it nice and smoky down here, crawling on all of the formations. But they made a pretty decent living down here. They make their alcohol and transport it back up towards the surface all throughout Prohibition. In fact, whenever they were down here, the ranchers never actually went past this point in the sinkhole. So they never made it to the bottom or even knew that there was a cave that existed down there. Reason being is that they had already used a lot of their resources to go in and out of that first hole. To go further to the bottom of the sinkhole is pretty much just another straight drop down. I'm pretty much standing, if these stairs weren't here, I'd be standing on a little rock diving board, just one inch from going over the ledge here. But of course, after Prohibition ended, the ranchers, they packed up all of their stuff and they moved on back out. They didn't have a need for this hole in the ground anymore, especially since they didn't know the cave existed down there. So they moved on back out. But eventually, a little while after that, rumors kind of started traveling around this small town. Eventually, a group of siblings were actually adventurous enough to come explore down here and see what was what after those ranchers had left. So their names were the McGrath siblings. It was James, Harold, and Mary McGrath. James was the oldest. He was about 15, 14 at the time. He brought his younger brother Harold, who was only about 10 years old. And they also let their little sister Mary tag along. She was only about 7 years old at the time. They were our first explorers to make it to the bottom of the sinkhole and see everything that you're going to see in the cave today. They descended down using a similar ropes and ladder system like those ranchers had used. They got to this point, the point those ranchers never went past. They yanked down a rope and tied it to this stalagmite right here. You might even be able to see some chipping or abrasion marks on the side of that from where the rope might have worn into this stalagmite. But they tied the other end of that rope around their little sister Mary's waist and lowered her all the way to the bottom of the sinkhole first. She was the very first person to make it to the bottom of the sinkhole, very lucky. Of course, she was the lightest and the smallest. She had to go first, and then her brothers rappelled back down to catch up with her, and they all entered the cave together. So as we go down the stairs here, if you want to give a peek over your left-hand side, you can see just how far down Mary had to be lowered to get to the bottom of the sinkhole.
Oh no.
And as we go down these stairs, just make sure you hold on to the handrail and watch your steps. They can be a little uneven at times.
Keep going. It's getting kind of cold. Oh, look, it's good. So this is how far Mary had to be. Mary is the first person down here. It's pretty deep.
Watch your step on these stairs here.
More lids. I don't know why they use lids. There's water on the steps, so we do have to be careful. Look, little cave formations right down there.
Carl's Bay Tavern?
So again, we're going to try to get everyone on this last set of stairs as we can. We're not going to be able to fit everyone, but I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to hear me as much as possible. As you come down the stairs there, if you turn around, look where I'm shining my flashlight. See
Oh, look,
another
there's
bat hanging
another
on the
bat.
upside of these, or the bottom side of these stairs.
Right there. There he is. There's a bat.
I have not. I just like to make
Kind of value added.
Alright, what about the one down?
Going down into the dark part of the cave. You probably can't really because of people are talking, but
Pretty obvious,
yeah.
so they're pretty recognizable.
I think right here is where I'm going to end this part. So I will see y'all in the second part.